Hello friends, it's me Marissa, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to create an alcohol ink fade. I have two techniques to do this. We already did a video on the first technique, so today we're going to talk about the second technique. This is another beautiful way to create a fade with a lot of intrigue. This technique works a lot better on a larger scale. You can see in this piece it has a little bit more of a subtle fade as it expands out. Here's another example of a piece where I also did this technique with a lot of colors. You can see the ink fades out in a very dramatic way from the center of the piece as it expands. So what do you need to start creating this technique? So you need the same things that I mentioned in the first technique, but we'll go over them again. You need 91% isopropyl alcohol. You need a plastic cup with a pipette. You also need a surface to work on. I prefer Yupo paper. You also need some ink. You can pick whatever colors you like. I personally prefer Copic. Now, this isn't a alcohol ink essential, but in this video, I'll be using Pinata Brass. This is a fantastic metallic by Jacquard. I highly recommend it. So this is all you need to create an alcohol ink fade using my second technique. So to start this technique, we're going to put a single dot of ink in the center of your paper and surround it with isopropyl alcohol. Now we are going to start to swirl the isopropyl alcohol into the Copic ink. We're going to do this a little bit slowly. You can start to see that the ink is beginning to move with the isopropyl alcohol. Now here I'm going to blow the ink into the isopropyl alcohol to start to disperse it a little bit more. Then we're going to swirl it again. You can see that there's a very dramatic line starting to form as the isopropyl alcohol is pushing the ink into one specific spot. With this technique, you can continue to move the ink back and forth until you get the fade exactly the way that you would like. It's very forgiving and also allows you to add a little bit more of the ink if you would like it to be darker. Here, I'm just doing one final push to make sure that the ink is nice and smooth and has a clean gradient as it moves into the isopropyl alcohol. And that is one example of how you can create this fade. Let's do another one. In this example, we're going to make it a little bit more exciting by putting a drop of metallic into the ink after we've applied it to the paper. Once again, we're going to surround the ink with isopropyl alcohol. Now that the alcohol is on the paper, I'm going to begin to swirl the ink around similar to the last example I showed you. So I'm going to continue to move it back and forth in and out of the isopropyl alcohol until I start to get a nice gradient that I'm happy with. This technique is very, very fun because you can do it on a large scale if you're working on a bigger piece. Do you see the metallic moving with the ink? Isn't that beautiful? It begins to create a really subtle metallic line along the edges of the ink, which is so pretty. Here, I'm going to blow the ink a little bit more into the isopropyl alcohol to get a bit more of a gradient. So I'll be honest with you, I was not super happy with this fade. This happens in pieces that you're working on and that I'm working on all the time. One thing that you can do is add some more ink. All you have to do after adding the ink is put a little bit more isopropyl alcohol down and begin to swirl the piece again. The isopropyl alcohol will begin to absorb the existing ink along with the new ink that you put onto the piece. You'll also see that that beautiful metallic is beginning to swirl with the ink again. You can already tell that there's beginning to be a much better sense of depth to this example. Look at that gold, so pretty. So I'm just continuing to move it until I get it to a point where I'm exactly happy with it. I'm going to push the air with my breath one more time here, just to make sure that the final gradient is something that I'm happy with. And look at that, I think I am. So there's a second technique, second way that you can create a beautiful alcohol ink fade. Alcohol inks are so fun, but they are tricky. This technique is challenging, but with persistence, you can definitely achieve it and continue to learn more about how to create beautiful pieces with alcohol inks. Continue creating, keep trying, and most importantly, have fun.
Sleeping on my belly in a loop like a serpent.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Like I said, I have a ton of fun making these. It's super cold and gross here in Wisconsin, so this was a nice fun way to make the day a little bit less icky. So check out my website or my Instagram, askjrart.com or at askjrart, and send me a message if you have questions or ideas for a video. So thank you again so much for watching. Go out there, try out alcohol inks, have an awesome time, and just go have fun.